Today we're going to take notes on the executive branch. So this is the video. Last week we talked about Congress, or the legislative branch that makes the laws. This week we're going to talk about the executive branch, which is headed up by the President of the United States, and they're in job of carrying out the laws. All right. So the responsibility of the executive branch simply is to carry out and enforce and enact the laws that Congress passed. It is explained in Article 2 of the Constitution. Remember, the legislative branch was explained in Article 1. And the executive branch, although it is headed by the president, includes millions of people, actually. It includes the president, the vice president, the cabinet, all the people that work for the cabinet members, and a bunch of people of a bunch of different executive agencies, including like the armed services and military. So a lot of people in the executive branch in charge of carrying out the laws in this country. All right, we talked about this before, but the requirements to be president is you have to be a natural-born citizen. You cannot be a naturalized citizen. You have to be 35 years or older, and you have to have been in the United States for the last 14 years. There are no requirements for the vice president, but the 25th Amendment states the vice president has to have the same qualifications as the president. All right, the president has 4 years in office. There used to be no limit on terms until FDR was elected for 4 terms, and then they changed that. The 22nd Amendment established a 2-term limit. So a president can only be president for 2 4-year terms. All right, like I mentioned, who's in the executive branch? More than 4 million people. The most notable is the president, the vice president, the cabinet members like Secretary of Education and Defense. But there's a whole bunch of agencies. NASA is an executive branch agency. The United States Marine Corps, the CIA, the FBI, the Department of Justice, all of these. And there's thousands of people, millions of people that help the president carry out the laws. All right, the vice president. The vice president really only has 2 constitutional jobs: to take over the presidency if something happens to the president, and to be the president of the Senate with a tie-breaking vote. We talked about that last week. All right, cabinet. This is an important vocab word. Make sure that you know this. The cabinet are the top advisors to the president that help him run the country. So the Secretary of Education runs education, and the Department of Treasury runs the economy. The Department of Defense runs the military. They advise the president and give him advice and help him run the country. So these are the top advisors that help the president carry out his orders. And then, like I mentioned, there's a whole bunch of executive agencies as well that help the president do these things as well. FBI and the NSA and, people that help with intelligence and all kinds of things. See a bunch of these agencies here. All right. So what are the duties of the powers? The president has some expressed or enumerated delegated powers. He is the commander of the armed forces, so he's in charge of the military, to make treaties with other countries. When Congress creates a law, the president has to approve or veto it. He can send and receive diplomatic representatives to other countries. He can grant pardons to people who have been convicted of crimes. He carries out the laws, and he gets to appoint judges, cabinet members, and other government employees. He also has implied powers, which are to give executive orders, which we'll talk about in another slide. All right, one of the jobs that the president has to do according to the Constitution is he has to give a State of the Union. Every year in January, the president gives a State of the Union, which is an annual speech to Congress to give a state of what the country is. It's usually a big deal. It'll be on the news. He talks for an hour or two about what's going on in the country, what his administration wants to do. It's called a State of the Union speech. You see President Obama giving it to the entire Congress here. President also has the ability to veto or sign legislation. This is a good example of checks and balances. Matter of fact, it says right here that this is the executive major check on the legislative branch. Congress's main job is to sign laws. The president can veto or reject it. President is commander-in-chief. That is probably one of his most important jobs. They are the leader of the military. They direct the military, send them into foreign countries. Very important job. That's called commander-in-chief of the military. President can also sign treaties with other countries. You see President Obama sign a treaty with, France maybe. Jimmy Carter signed a treaty with Panama here. But it's important to note that the treaties have to be approved by the Senate, that part of Congress there, just like presidential nominees have to be approved by the Senate. So example, checks and balances. He gets to appoint Supreme Court judges. Again, they must be approved by the Senate. And they get to nominate the people in their cabinet, which again must be approved by the Senate, the people that are going to help run the country. Now, this is one we have not talked much about. The president gets to grant pardons. A pardon is someone who's been accused of a crime or has been convicted of a crime, maybe someone who's even in prison. And a pardon forgives that person's punishment. That person is set free. That person is forgiven. And so that is something that a president has the power to do. Okay, so this is an important slide. I want to talk a minute about this. This is a vocab word you need to know, an executive order. Executive order is a written instruction that the president gives the executive branch on how to carry out laws. And it basically has the effect of a law. It's not a law because it didn't go through Congress, but it's like has the effect of law. It's not as good as a law because it can be overruled by the courts, by Congress, or even the next president. So right now, Joe Biden's in the process of signing a bunch of executive orders that are just undoing the executive order that President Trump's probably holding right here. So it doesn't have the full weight and power of a law, but its ability for the president to do something unilaterally by himself without Congress. There have been some really important executive orders. Eisenhower desegregated schools with an executive order. Abraham Lincoln ended slavery with an executive order. So there have been some very important, powerful executive orders in history that have done important things. Probably better to pass a law and go through Congress and the president sign it. But when that can't be done, the president can sign an executive order. All right. The president has some different hats that he wears as the president. One is commander-in-chief. He's the leader of the military. He's also the chief executive of the executive office and gets to carry out how laws are carried out. He's also the chief diplomat, which means he is the one that talks and works with foreign countries. He's also the head of state, carrying out ceremonial functions like the Easter egg hunt or the pardoning a turkey or hosting the Cleveland Browns when they win the Super Bowl at the White House. He's also the legislative leader. He's the most important person that gets to kind of propose and suggest and help make laws with Congress. So, like I said, these are just some of the roles I was mentioning. Hey, look, there's Kid President. The boss of the executive branch, chief diplomat. You do need to know that one. That's in charge of foreign affairs policy, which, working with countries around the world. Sign, suggest laws. And they're also the leader of their party. Republican or Democrat, they're the most important person in their political party. Helps the economy. Commander-in-Chief's head of the military. That's one you absolutely need to know. Commander-in-Chief. All right, so this is a good one. This is some examples of checks and balances between the branches. So checks on the legislative. Executive branch can veto laws, can make appointments, negotiate foreign treaties. What's the legislative branch check on executive? Well, they can override a presidential veto. The Senate gets to confirm presidential appointments and ratify treaties, and the Senate declares war even though the president is the commander-in-chief. All right, that's it. All right, good. And if you have any questions, let me know. My face is in the way. Hold on.